Coming from its humble beginnings as a World War II shooter, the Call of Duty franchise has evolved throughout different wars, eras, and brutal timelines. So, does it surprise anyone that it's given us some of the most vile characters in gaming history? And that begs the question, which of these villains are the worst of the worst? Hey guys, I'm Brad with One Up Binge, and today we're clearing up one last loose end. This is Call of Duty Villains, evil to most evil.
Remember, no Russian.
Oh, this may go without saying, but, you know, spoilers and stuff. So, let's start with the least vile villain, and then begin the descent towards the most ruthlessly evil. Starting off with the least evil is the main villain of Black Ops 3, Corvus. Created by accident by the CIA during its human testing with the new DNI system, Corvus was born to a tumultuous start, releasing Nova gas on the scientist who created them. Throughout the story of Black Ops 3, he tries to help the player and even creates a simulation for them to live in. Oh, how nice. Not all that glitters is gold, however, and during later parts of the story, he causes the deaths of multiple soldiers, even forcing the player to kill some themselves. And while Corvus is not seen as malicious, just wanting to learn about his creation and why he was alive, things take a turn for the worse when he's told that he was created by accident and you're forced to kill him. It's remarkable how sad this AI story is. Moving on to Javier Salazar from Black Ops 2. Javier was a double agent in both the Navy SEALs and the terrorist organization Cordis Die in the year 2025. Although he did commit a few treasonous acts, such as letting Raul Menendez free from the interrogation room, he never commits any truly heinous acts himself. He even said he was against unnecessary bloodshed if Menendez shot Briggs. It's safe to say that even a double agent like Salazar can still care about his teammates. He's only here to help. Next on the list is Daniel Clark from Call of Duty Black Ops. Once a renowned professor who couldn't get funding due to his political beliefs, would later go across Russia and meet up with Nikita Dragovich, who offered him a job. Daniel would help refine the Nova 6 gas, for him, only to be finished off by Nikita, a burning scar in this cold, cold war. Next is Viktor Zakayev, the tracksuit-wearing son of the infamous gun runner Imran.
Well, I got a plan to find him.
I'm listening. Daddy's boy.
All he wanted to do was help his father as an ultra-nationalist, even driving President Yasser Al-Faluni to the location where he would be executed. But he never chose to do this for any other reason than to help his father, which begs the question if he actually meant to go down this path in life. Hailing from a criminal underworld, next up is Hades from Infinite Warfare. Hades grew up in a technology-fueled world. He despises all kinds of tech and vows to bring the world back to a time before technology. While he does take hostages in Nicaragua and blows up some nuclear reactors, it is later revealed he was hired by Jonathan Irons. With his dying breath, he gives protagonist Miller the evidence he needs to incriminate his employer, showing that he might not be as bad as he's believed to be. The sleeper agent awakens, and it's Akil Min Raya. He was a sleeper agent controlled by the SDF and left on Earth with a transmitter in his stomach. He, under orders from Salen Koch, hacked into the Earth's planetary defense system and turned it onto a fleet of airships before disabling it. He then cut open his stomach and tore out the transmitter before succumbing to his wounds. He may have injured many, but it wasn't all under his control. Next up is Menendez's right-hand man, DeFalco. Like most soldiers, DeFalco follows orders to a T, eliminating targets or taking hostages, but always under orders. It's not known how he ended up with Menendez or why he feels justified. From Germany to China, the next spot belongs to Zhao. Having worked in Afghanistan along with the infamous Alex Mason, Zhao is a man of his country, trying to unite his nation against the incoming war from the West. Once finding out that David, the son of Alex, was in Pakistan, he ordered his men not to kill them due to a mutual hatred of Menendez. The enemy of my enemy is my friend after all, but he does take back on his word, working with Menendez if all the pieces fall in place. His kind thrives in a war zone. Next is Jamal the Butcher Rahar.
How about you, Captain? Are you gonna let them die?
Well known for separating people from a pretty important part of their body, Jamal is the second in command of Al-Qatala. While he's known as the Butcher, he seems to be doing this for the good of his country, at least in his own mind. Jumping all the way back to 1944 comes Heinrich, a high-ranking German soldier during World War II who was stationed in France. Although we don't know everything he's guilty of, he's a high-ranking SS officer, which implies a tremendous amount of evil. Even though he's the secondary antagonist of the game, the main confirmed thing he did was orphan Camille Dennis and then laugh about it before being killed by her. Definitely a twisted guy. 3 characters take one slot, with Victor, Lev, and Kirili from the mission No Russian and Modern Warfare 2. These 3 were part of Makarov's inner circle and assisted him on a mission to a Russian international airport, where they, alongside Makarov himself and an undercover CIA agent, committed one of the most heinous acts in the airport. They weren't the orchestrators of the attack, but they did directly carry out one of the most ruthless events that set off a chain of events that would change everything. Warabi from Modern Warfare 3 takes up our next spot. Warabi is an African warlord bankrolled by Makarov who committed various inhuman acts by taking over parts of Africa to commit genocide on certain tribes. He also smuggled chemical weapons across the border into Europe for Makarov. African lions meet the Urzikistani wolf, Omar the Wolf Suleiman. While he is the leader and supposed founder of Al-Qatala, a terrorist organization in the fictional country of Urzikistan, he fights for a cause that seems just in his mind, since he's pursuing the independence of his country by any means necessary.
I am just a lowly freedom fighter.
Sadly, any means necessary tends to include criminal acts, such as stealing chemical weapons to use against the United States. In the end, he didn't get to see his wish come to fruition, being killed before his country was freed from Russian control. At least he went out with a boom. Next is Roman Barkov. Barkov serves as the main antagonist of the rebooted Modern Warfare game that came out in 2019. He grew up with a reading disability, and the only thing he was good at was cooking. He eventually became a high-ranking soldier and started doing direct attacks into Urzikistan in an attempt to annex the country. Through the entirety of the game, he made himself the new king of Urzikistan and believed that everything he was doing was correct. He thought he was the savior of Russia, and up until his final moments, he believed that he was in the right the entire time. Ghost or Ghost Eliminator. Next up is Gabriel T. Rourke from Call of Duty Ghost. Gabriel fits on this list in a special way, thanks to the fact that he used to be a good guy when he was younger. Along with Elias, he was part of what would eventually become the Ghost program. However, when Elias had left him behind, he was kidnapped by the Federation and brainwashed after months of torture. So that puts his actions in perspective, since while he won revenge on Elias, he also got brainwashed, and that means that not everything he did was of his own volition. Sadly, he still did some horrible things, like shooting Elias in front of his sons or blowing up a skyscraper with people inside. He did horrible things, but how many were his fault is really up to debate. From one type of brainwashing to another, here is Salen Koch. Salen Koch is played by Kit Harington and is the main villain of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. He was born on Mars in a section controlled by the Settlement Defense Front and grew up ingesting their propaganda. Throughout his life, he worked for the SDF and eventually ended up as a high-ranking soldier under their employ. He blew up multiple ships as well as a few military bases, and his body count is in the hundreds. However, he does seem more conscious of his actions than Rourke was, even ripping out the oxygen tank of a soldier and telling his men to finish them off without bullets. He even tells Wolf that empathy would get him nowhere, and that due to his lack of empathy, he's the better soldier, and that Wolf would never win. Although he's long dead by the time we play Ghost, we can't forget about Diego Almagro. Diego Almagro was a South American dictator and would eventually form the evil organization known as the Federation, with multiple countries within South America. He managed to do this by forcefully taking over these countries and ruling them with an iron fist, ordering the imprisonment or execution of any US-born citizens within these countries. He's also led to all the main conflicts within the game, so it's not surprising he's this high. He may only be an arms dealer, but next is Imran Zakayev. Imran is a Russian criminal who's done everything from gun running to nuclear bomb threats. His actions led to most of the events within the modern warfare timeline, with his formation of the ultra-nationalist party, giving Khalid the nuclear bomb, hiring Makarov, and of course, being the original mastermind behind World War III. Imran's mentor, Perseus, comes next. Perseus is the main villain of Call of Duty Cold War, the latest in the series, and while he hasn't had much screen time as of yet, we do know a good deal about him. Perseus is a Soviet spy who runs an underground ring of spies, who also use the cover name Perseus. Perseus's whole goal is relatively simple. He wants to undermine and destroy the power that the US holds, to make the Soviet Union the world's only superpower. He's also credited as being the one person to radicalize Imran Zakayev and make him the terrorist that he is. It's no surprise that the new guy ranks this high. Next is Metz, another SS soldier and the main antagonist of Call of Duty World War II. He's the director of a German labor camp where he abuses prisoners. In the end, he's killed while actively executing prisoners in the woods, guilty of some of the worst crimes against humanity. Although many of the other villains on the list have higher death counts, the fact that Metz committed these acts so personally makes him especially vile. And though he's a fictional character, the fact that people like him existed in somewhat recent history is terrifying. Moving on to Dr. Friedrich Steiner. This is a German scientist that defected to Russia during the events of World War II and prior to the events of Call of Duty Black Ops. Now, he may not have the kill count of Salem Koch, but he is much less ethical. Steiner created the infamous Nova 6 gas that could kill someone exposed to it within 10 to 20 seconds. This dirty chemical weapon was originally going to be used by the Germans in the Second World War and the Soviets during the Cold War. It was during the Cold War that it was tested on multiple Soviet soldiers, American prisoners, and even Vietnamese citizens. Steiner not only created the famed gas, but he helped create the sleeper agents that would release the gas, including Alex Mason. In addition to all of this, Steiner was a Nazi who only jumped ship to the Soviet Union because Germany lost the war to ensure that he would not be killed. And he's also a massive coward, begging for his life to be spared by the Americans, even after all the things he did while working under Project Nova. The good thing is, his comeuppance was swift at the hands of Alex Mason. From chemical terrorism to nuclear terrorism, here comes Khaled al-Assad. Khaled is well known for committing a violent coup d'etat against the Saudi Arabian president Yasser al-Fulani and executed him live on screen for hundreds to see. He did these things under the orders of Makarov and was violent for violence sake. He was the one who pressed the button on the nuclear bomb that wiped out 30,000 people when they got close to finding him. Although he was just a pawn in a larger game, much like Steiner, his actions ended in more deaths than Steiner's, and he got to hurt more people than Steiner did, and in a much shorter time. From one of Makarov's henchmen to another, next up on our list is Viktor Volk Krashenko. Viktor has a lot in common with the previous two entries. He's one of Makarov's workers and had created multiple chemical weapons prior to and during the events of the game. The reason Volk is above Khaled and Steiner is due to the fact that not only did he create the powerful weapon that would harm so many people in France and other parts of Europe, but he was the one who actually smuggled the chemical weapons into Paris to later be used. He also doesn't seem to care about human life nearly as much as some of the other villains. He may still be a pawn, but one who reached the edge of the board. Moving on to Nikita Dragovich. Dragovich is the mastermind behind Project Nova and is the one who hired Friedrich Steiner. Dragovich's only terrible act is not just Project Nova. He was also a small villain in World at War, having allowed Reznov's crew to be decimated at the massacre of Red Square, then took the remaining ones and tested Nova 6 on them. He wanted to destroy the US internally by using sleeper agents and threatened chemical warfare. He never gives a solid reasoning behind what he does. Maybe he just feels like it. Man, what a psycho. The next one on our list is Russian baddie Lev Krashenko. Lev Krashenko might not seem to fit this high on the list, but throughout both Black Ops and Black Ops 2, he committed many heinous acts on not just American soldiers, but also civilians and his own men. Originally, he was under the reigns of Nikita Dragovich, but after the death of his superior officer, he was alone and able to do what he wished. He was described as being a dog without a leash, and went off and murdered as he pleased with no real reasoning. Our number 4 spot for evil goes to Jonathan Irons, Kevin Spacey's character in Advanced Warfare. Irons starts the game looking like the hero, even offering the main protagonist a job at Atlas. It's not until later that it's revealed that he's actually the bad guy. He offered terrorist jobs so that Atlas can clean up and look like good guys. All Irons wanted was power. A true sociopath. The Bronze Medal of Evil goes to none other than Raul Menendez, leader of Cortes Die. Growing up in the tumultuous Nicaragua and witnessing the American-paid Contras destroying his country, he grew up hating America and its ideals. He eventually starts to arm anti-American rebellions. This got the attention of the United States, and this leads to the accidental murder of his sister, Josephina, by Frank Woods. He forces Frank Woods to kill his friend Alex Mason, murders Hudson in front of him, and kidnaps David Mason. In the future, he forms a massive, anarchic, cult-like following with Cortes Die. He hacks into the Chinese stock market to force a war between China and America. He even wins in the end if he dies, since with his death, Cortes Die starts to tear apart America. He lived a tumultuous life, and to many, died a martyr. The Silver Medal of Evil may not surprise anyone because it's Lieutenant General Shepard. Shepard is the main antagonist of Modern Warfare 2 and is trying to avenge the deaths of the 30,000 soldiers dead at the hands of Makarov and the Four Horsemen. Throughout the story, he's seen as your commanding officer and the hero the world needs in these dark times. However, towards the last third of the game, his hypocrisy is shown, and he kills both Ghost and your player character Roach, quipping no loose ends. His betrayal is by far one of, if not the most shocking thing in the entire Call of Duty franchise. At the end of the day, Shepard is a true megalomaniac who only cares about his reputation. He hides his ego and that he's a sociopath in patriotism and appears to be completely without remorse for the crimes he commits. Our Gold Medal of Evil goes to none other than Vladimir Makarov. Makarov is the main antagonist of the entire Modern Warfare series. He's not only the grand mastermind behind World War III, but he has the highest kill count of any villain in the series. His body count rounded out to 31,641. He committed many acts of terrorism, killing hundreds in an airport and blaming it on the United States. He even shot and killed Yuri, who was his only known friend, a terrorist who totally lacked empathy. He was ruthlessly sadistic and craved power. It's safe to call Makarov a genuine psychopath. He has no morals, doing everything he does to make Russia the #1 world superpower and almost succeeding before getting killed by Captain Price. In his own words, it doesn't take the most powerful nations on Earth to create the next global conflict, just the will of a single man.